When it comes to NHRIs, National Human Rights Institutions, national human rights institutions are a bridge between civil society and the government. They're neither here nor there. They're very unique institutions in their own right. And it becomes important to work on NHRIs as a human rights organization because NHRIs are responsible for protecting and promoting human rights in their own national context. If you monitor the performance, if you monitor how the NHRI has been addressing issues before it, human rights concerns, you do get a finger on the pulse of what institutions are doing for people. So it becomes important to work on these institutions, to advocate for better, effective, credible institutions that are able to respond to these human rights concerns. And a network like ANI becomes important from a civil society perspective. So a network like ANI is a regional network. We have members in all these countries, and they work individually in their own national context, but we're also strengthened as a network and as a whole.
What do you think is the future of NHRIs in Asia, given today's political landscape, and also it's the 30th anniversary of the Paris Principles?
Thank you for that question. I think it's a difficult one to answer very briefly. But certainly I think since we are now 3 decades since the Paris Principles were adopted way back in 1993, it's really an opportune moment to reflect on how far NHRIs have or have not performed the way they were intended to. And I think having something like the Paris Principles is definitely important, but it's also a moment for all of us as civil society to reflect on what can we do above and beyond to demand more accountability for our NHRIs as well, because at the end of the day they are institutions of the people, they are public institutions, and therefore civil society does have the right to demand answers, to demand accountability. And when it comes to the future of NHRIs, I think, as I mentioned, they are a way of understanding the pulse of the human rights situation in a country. Things aren't looking very great in a lot of countries, unfortunately, but I think, as a lot of people have mentioned already at this event, hope is something that civil society tends to harbor and needs to harbor. So I think we move in with that kind of optimism for the next coming decade. For example, to hope that we can push for more effective, more credible, more accountable institutions. And I think that's going to be an ongoing endeavor of a network like ANI as well.
Thank you, Shomira.
Thank you, Prithvi.